The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
We're living in interesting times. We are living at the transition point, or living through the transition away from everything that white America has told themselves about themselves since the founding of this country. And this is the generation that is having to come to terms with the fact that what was taught to us in the history books of this country was inaccurate. At best, it was incomplete. And this is causing an entire generation of particularly white conservatives and that group of people who, are the hangers-on, those people of color who are the hangers-on that salute white supremacy, that support white supremacy, that back it and are more than happy to get on television or to write their articles and to do so from the perspective of protecting white supremacy with their black skin, their brown skin, their gender, their non-gender conforming. The conservatism has gotten really good at identity politics. What they do is that they pull people from an identity who's willing to protect white male supremacy. And that is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the transition away from the era when whiteness was able to dictate the history books. To the victor goes the spoils, is the saying. What they did not realize that the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And so what does that mean? That means that while the victors, the people who enslaved Africans, the people who committed genocide against the Native Americans, the people who dropped bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the people who commit and continue to commit war crimes across the global South and are able to get away with it because this country has institutionalized in the minds of human beings that if it ain't white and if it ain't Western, then we should not have any kind of connection of sympathy or empathy for the people we drop bombs on. We cry when something happens in France. Let a terrorist attack occur in France, and it'll be all over our news. But let a school full of children in Africa be bombed or gunned down, and it barely makes a blip. That is a direct result of everything America has been telling itself, the lies that this country has been telling itself for centuries. Had a fascinating conversation, just got off the air with Roland Martin and one of the sisters on there, Kelly Bethea. And I hope I pronounced her last name right, because you all know I can't pronounce names. And Kelly, forgive me if I pronounced it wrong, but she said something that struck my soul. She said that these people would still be celebrating their crimes if not for the fact that we, the victims of their crimes, are now in a position to tell our own stories. And so while to the victor goes the spoils, yes, and while history is written by the victors, yeah, but they messed around and let us keep living until we were able to be in a position to tell the history the way it was. And that is why all of these white conservatives and the people of color who are more than happy to do their bidding, this is why they're losing their absolute minds. They're losing their minds because they're losing the narrative. And if they lose the narrative, then they lose power, because then they will no longer be able to tell the lies about this immaculate conception of the United States of America. Oh, they are just now. We are just now in a generation where you can actually get some people, elected people, to actually call the crimes against humanity what they actually are. We're just now living in a society where we can call white supremacy what it is. We can call a thing it is. It's white supremacy. Do you realize just back in 2016, you could barely even say white supremacy on the air without losing your invitations back. And now we can call a thing, and that is one of the most powerful things, because you know what that does? It does. They understand. Let me stop that sentence. I want to preface what I'm getting ready to say with this. They understand exactly how powerful it is to be able to write the history. And this is why we have, every version of American history leaves students with the idea that America is just and has done no wrong. Now, I do understand the aspirational side of the United States of America, and that's the only thing I cling to. That's the only thing I can cling to, because if we look at the actual history, the history does not match the aspiration. The history of this country does not match what the founding fathers said, that all men are created equal. That's not what the history is. Our history is riddled with countless atrocities committed to protect the power structure that is white Christian men. See, they understand that if the history is told accurately, then they got to pay. And the very next thing that will always inevitably be said in response to that is that, oh, I didn't commit the crime. Okay. But you are the beneficiary thereof. And we, Black people, Native Americans, brown people, so many categories of people who have been on the receiving end of American atrocities still live with the ravages of what was done. And we still live with the present system of oppression. It is very necessary for there to be a group of people who are willing to say there's no oppression and y'all are just tripping. These are the Lee Fongs of the world from The Intercept. The Zed Zalani, I forgot his last, Jelani, whatever his last name is. These are people of color. You even have a couple of Black people who do this. Tim Scott, the Republican from South Carolina. You're going to always have people who look like, or rather who don't look like the oppressor, who does the work of the oppressor. But tell me, you see it for yourself. You see the videos. We have the footage of the real time, the real time offense that is being committed against Black and brown bodies in this country, specifically Black people, especially Black men. We see it. And you could be a judge for yourself. And that is the problem that they are up against. They realize they are losing the narrative. And so they are Republicans, conservatives, and the people who like to pretend like they're not conservative, but do the bidding of conservatives. They are in a full court press, in order to stop the narrative of the truth, the narrative of the just, the narrative of the people who have been oppressed. That narrative is one of the most powerful things in the universe. Because if Dr. King is right and the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice, that means that the people who are oppressed in time, if given enough time, will overcome that oppression. And these people are terrified. This is why Tucker Carlson, every single night, Tucker Carlson is going to fan the flames. They would rather burn this country to the ground than for this country to be a Black nation or a brown nation. They have already, literally, Nick Fuentes, who is a white commentator, despite his last name, he's a white commentator who is, for all intents and purposes, best summarized as a neo-Nazi. Go watch him for yourself if you need to verify it. He participated in and was happy and proud of what happened on January 6th. As a result of that, he has been placed on a no-fly list. Go figure, dummy. Attack the United States, it's a good possibility that you won't be able to just get away with it, except so many of them have. And the fact that he is not in jail, he is just unable to fly. But I digress. The point is Nick Fuentes, because he was placed on a no-fly list, said that he is willing to align with anyone who is able and willing to end this American system. Why? Because he couldn't believe that he was unable to get away with his white supremacy without being punished. That's just one example. But he broadcasts every single night. Tucker Carlson broadcasts to millions of people every single night. And he says the same thing that this little neo-Nazi who was on the no-fly list says. And that is that there is a problem in this country, and the real victims of racism in this country are white people. And that the real problem is not what happened on January 6th. It's not the coronavirus. Who needs the vaccine? It is woke supremacy. It is critical race theory. It is all the things that are teaching young people, particularly college-age students, because there ain't nobody teaching critical race theory in high school, middle school, elementary school, high school, all those grade school. You have a bunch of, I'm sorry, you just, it has been my experience that I never once had a single teacher, nor did I ever work with a teacher. All the years that I worked, I was the most radical of them all, and I didn't even realize how radical was that back then. I was basically just a black man in America. Got pulled over by the principal at my first school I taught at and told me not to teach socialism. I wasn't even fully aware of what socialism was at that time. Furthermore, he had absolutely no evidence of anything to suggest that I was a socialist. Maybe he just saw it on me. He just saw the spirit in me. He said, that black boy is a socialist, and I know it. Pulled me over and said, don't just make sure I don't teach any of my ideologies in that class. This is the system. This is the system that is teaching our kids, not critical race theory. And these people have lost their minds because at the university level, people are beginning to understand the intersection of racism and the law. And how law has been like the laws in this country, not laws in general, but specifically the laws in the United States have been rooted in white supremacy. And because black people are matriculating to the higher institute and for I mean, it's not like this is brand new, but it is now at the point where what we say can resonate and reach enough people to have the level of impact that is necessary for us to change the narrative, and white conservatives are losing their damn minds. And so there is a full court press from every angle, not just those people who admit that they're conservatives and those who are proud to be white supremacists, and they're proud of America as they were taught in elementary school, not as it is. Those people, along with their the peripheral supporters, those who fancy themselves to be libertarian, but in reality, you're falling right in line with white supremacy. Those people are doing everything they can to make sure that they completely and totally invalidate and vilify the idea of critical race theory, the idea that white supremacy even exists, and the idea that it is a threat, when the record clearly reflects that white supremacy is the greatest threat to this country.
Welcome back to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at thebenjamindixonshow.com.
White supremacy is the greatest threat to this country. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. White supremacy is at the core. It's let me go on a sidestep here. There is a solidifying and unifying ideology being negotiated in real time around us right now, today. And it is a negotiation between groups like Nazis, neo-Nazis, conservatives, American conservatives, specifically the far right of the Republican Party, which actually is the part of the party that is in power right now. And so this is the Matt Gaetz. This is the Lindsey Graham. This is all of these people. They are there is a open and very public negotiation in terms of the ideology and what all falls underneath it. And it also includes some people who pretend to be on the left, when in actuality, they're nothing more than people who want a safety net, but still are okay with the oppression and the systemic racism. But I digress. I'm not here to talk about them. The point is, there's a negotiation in the ideology. And what's being negotiated is the give and take. What are these so-called leftists willing to give up in order to be in league with fascists? What are libertarians willing to give up in order to be in league with leftists? Would a libertarian allow for a safety net? Because if they can, and again, it's a very specific group of leftists that I'm talking about, and I'm putting it in quotations, air quotes. I want to be specific. This is not leftism. These are faux leftists. But again, that's not important. I'm not here to talk about them. I'm talking about the negotiation that's happening, and it also includes the conspiracy theory world. It includes people who refuse to believe that COVID-19 is even real. And that particular intersection of stupidity has found its way into the national discourse, and it has become part and parcel of what you get every single night, every single day from where. This is why I'm trying to tell you people, white supremacy is the greatest threat, because they need an alliance, and they are building an alliance. And that alliance also includes people who are going to get thousands more people killed because they have politicized and played down this pandemic since day one. And in that coalition, you're going to find a very diverse group of people who are there based on whatever issue is the most important to them and everything else they're willing to negotiate on. You're going to find people who claim to be leftists who are willing to negotiate on the rights of and the progress of marginalized groups, including the LGBTQIA community. They've been betrayed black folks a long time ago. They didn't give a damn about black folks. They are all more than happy to attack blackness and the idea of wokeness and whatever, and the idea of critical race. They're more than happy to serve that because they were tired of us a long time ago. But now they found a way. They're finding ways to make an alliance between people who are, they might actually be trans, but be anti-trans. Caitlyn Jenner running for governor. There's a very diverse coalition, and because they understood that they were dying out. White supremacy knew that it was dying out, and instead of creating a coalition around people based on how we can progress together, they made a coalition around all of the reactionaries from every single community, because black folks got reactionaries. The LGBTQIA community has reactionaries. Leftists have reactionaries. Every single group has reactionaries. And instead of creating a diverse coalition based on how we can lift all the diversity, they found a diverse coalition that is willing to say that there is no problem, and the only problem are these woke people who are trying to do X, Y, and Z, whatever the boogeyman of that week is. And this week, the boogeyman is critical race theory and wokeness. And they actually are peddling the idea that woke supremacy is more of a threat to this country than white supremacy. Well, actually, I'm going to tell you why they are correct. Wokeness, whatever, I don't even care about that word, because actually it was like it actually came from black people and white folks, well-meaning liberals. Y'all co-opted it, and now it's just like, whatever, bro. Y'all keep that word. But the challenge, the boldness and the tenacity and the ability to stare white supremacy in the face and be willing to tear it down, that is a threat to this country as they want this country to remain. They want America to be the America of 1950s. They want America to be the America where they could do anything to women and have absolutely no repercussions whatsoever. They are terrified and they hate cancel culture because in actuality, as LeVar Burton said from Reading Rainbow, he said that it's actually accountability culture. It's a consequence culture. It's saying that you can't just do what you want to another human being and not have some accountability. And not only have we not had accountability, you could do whatever you wanted to the human beings and run for office. And you could become a star. You could get immense wealth, and you have done so at the expense of human life. And now that there is just a modicum, because it's not really accountability. It's not really cancel culture. It's not even really consequence culture, because they always seem to come right back. They just have one bad news cycle, and all of a sudden, oh my God, it's the worst thing that happened in the world. Meanwhile, they done killed somebody, police officers. They have assaulted some woman that worked for them. Cancel culture. What they're terrified of is the possibility that one day this country will not be a country that you could be white and get away with what you want, especially when you're doing it to a black person or to a brown person or to an entire nation of Native Americans. They want this country to be a country where they could do anything to women. That's just boys will be boys. Accountability for what? No, just boys will be boys. Locker room talk. They want a nation where they can live out their fantasies of superiority without any responsibility to the repercussions. What repercussions? They used to lynch us in the square, and everybody, the police officer, the sheriff was there with them. The pastor was there with them. What consequences? And you mean to tell me now a police officer can't pull you over and beat you and get away with it? What the hell is happening to this country? And that's exactly what they're fighting so hard against. They're fighting against a nation where they can't get away with murder. And while that's generally spoken as a figure of speech, in too many cases, it is absolutely the truth. This is why you have people willing to raise millions of dollars for people like Kyle Rittenhouse to get him out of jail on bail. Because sure, that white boy should be able to go over there and shoot somebody in the name of his interpretation of what this country should be. What do you mean? How can he not get away with that? Besides, he killed some liberals. It should be fine. Why are you even mad about it? They're disgusting socialists. This is why you have so many people who to this day still support Derek Chauvin. This is why you have so many people who are committed to countless hours every single day. They either volunteer or they are paid. I don't care. Either way, they show a level of commitment to making sure that there can never be a narrative that is shared across social media without filling the comment sections with every ridiculous excuse, every ridiculous justification, and then sometimes just downright racism. They don't even try to hide it. Oh, you think those comments that you see, those people who reply to you, you thought that was organic? No, man, baby, they've been paying these people for a long time. And even if it is organic, it just shows you they are terrified of the possibility of this country becoming something that they don't control by themselves. They want you to fear Black America. They want you to fear a gender neutral America. A non-gender conforming future. They want you to fear an America where Christians only have as much power as Muslims. They want you to fear a country where religious people don't have any more power than agnostics and atheists. They want you to be terrified of that because they know therein lies their advantage. Their advantage was never in their superiority. Their advantage was in the system that provided them cover for their mediocrity. But I will say this, I'm still hopeful. I'm still hopeful because these are the death pangs of white supremacy. What we're living through right now. Tucker Carlson is nothing more than the dying gasp of a generation or generations of whiteness that was so privileged that they cannot imagine a country where police officers can't get away with murder. They cannot imagine a country where the history of this country would be told through the lens of the people who were oppressed by that country. Who do you think? Who do you want to write your eulogy? Actually, let me not make it so personally. Do you think a rapist wants their victim to write their eulogy? Do you think the family of someone who was murdered by the police, do you think that cop wants that person to write that history? To the victor goes the spoils. To the history is written by the victors. And what they have done is the victors let us keep living because they needed us. They needed our labor. They needed us to build this country. So it's not like they had an option. I mean, they did try to wipe us out, and those of us who survived built it, but we survived. We are essentially all descendants of survivors. And many of us, in our own way, are survivors of this system ourselves. Who do you think? Do you think the oppressor will ever want their history to be told by the oppressed? This is exactly what they are terrified of. And there ain't a damn thing that they can do because we're going to keep on talking, Tucker. We're going to keep on building. We know you all have the bigger platforms right now. We know you all have the most money right now, but we're still living. We're still alive. And so long as we're living, we're going to tell our stories through our lens. And there's not a damn thing you can do about it. I'll talk with you next time.